Hello everyone. In last video we discussed about keywords which are also called as reserved words. Okay, so now we'll discuss the second token, that is identifiers, in this video. Okay, so what is an identifier? These are the names which we give to a variable, method, array, class, interface or a package. Just like we all have some names to identify us. Similarly, the variables, methods, array, interface, packages and classes also have names to identify them. Okay, so this is a very basic definition of what an identifier is. That is, these are the names of a variable or method or an array or a class or an interface or a package. Okay, so now in identifiers we have two things, that are there are some rules we need to follow while naming the identifiers, and also we have some conventions. Okay, so if we talk about rules, rules are compulsory whereas the conventions are optional. Okay, so these rules are compulsory and the conventions are optional. They totally depend on our choice that whether we want to follow the conventions or not. But if we don't follow the rules, we'll get an error. Okay, so let's take an example of variable, method, array, class, interface and package. Okay, so just suppose if I have some variable, that is int n and a semicolon. So here this n is the identifier we gave to this variable name. Okay, now this was the example of a variable name. Now if we talk about some method, let's suppose it has the return type void, and if I give the method name m1, then in this case m1 is the identifier, as we'll call this method by the name m1. Okay, just like we all have our own names, similarly these methods have their own names which help them identify. Okay, this was the example of a method. Now if we talk about some array, so in Java we use ARR and square brackets for array and a semicolon. Okay, so this ARR is the name given to this array. If we talk about some class, just suppose if I take some class student. Okay, so here I have student and curly brackets. Okay, so student is the identifier in this case. If I have some interface, suppose I have some interface ABC, then ABC here is the identifier, caps ABC is the identifier. And let's take one example of package. So if I take package P1 and semicolon, here P1 is the identifier. Okay, we can change these identifiers, they are not fixed. I can also name it METH, I can also name it capital N or triple time N, like this. Okay, I can also change type over here anything. Okay, these are not fixed, and neither we are supposed to write interface in capitals. I can write over here anything, and here also I can write PAC for package, or even I can write my own name Ishita over here. Okay, so these were some example of identifiers. Now we'll see the identifier naming rules. Okay, rules which are compulsory. Okay, so here we have the identifier naming rules. Okay, we have 7 rules in total, so we'll talk about each one of them in detail. Okay, so if we talk about first rule is that identifier name can contain alphabets, digits and symbols in it. Okay, so I'll type it. It can contain, identifier name can contain alphabets. Okay, so if I talk about alphabets, we have A to Z in small and capital A to capital Z and even I can have here alpha, beta, gamma and pi. Okay, I don't have on the keyboard, so I'll draw over here. We can have alpha, beta, gamma, and also we have the pi variable. Okay, we can have these alphabets. Now we can have digits from 0 to 9. Okay, so we have the digits from 0 to 9. And third thing we can have are the symbols underscore and the dollar symbol. Okay, this symbol is called as underscore. Okay, this is called as underscore, and this one is called as dollar. Okay, we can use them. We can use these three things in our identifier. This is our first rule. Okay, so I'll write it over here that the identifier naming rules we have, it can contain alphabets in which we have small a to small z, comma capital A to capital Z, and alpha, beta, gamma. Okay, I cannot type it over here. Okay, so alpha, beta, gamma and pi, and then we have the digits in which we have 0 to 9. We can also use 10, 20, 200 like this. The combination of digits are also possible. Okay, so 0 to 9 digits. Then we have the symbols. Okay, the symbols underscore. This underscore symbol is right after the 0 key on the keyboard. Okay, right after the 0 key on the keyboard, above the hash. The dash we have on the keyboard, just right above it. So that is, we'll use the shift key and press that key. So we got the underscore. And the dollar sign is present on the 4-number key. Okay, so this is our first rule. Okay, first rule done. Now we have the second rule. Okay, second rule says it cannot contain dot, space and any other special symbol. Okay, we have the rule, it cannot contain dot. Okay, it cannot contain a dot or space or any other special symbol. By special symbol I mean hashtag, @ exclamation sign, percentage sign, end sign, multiplication sign, parenthesis signs. We cannot use them in this. Okay, so we cannot have any other special character in the variable name, in the identifier name. Okay, this is our second rule, that we cannot have a dot, we cannot have some space. Suppose if I write a variable int a space b and semicolon, I'll get an error in this case because we cannot have space in between. Neither I cannot have a dot over here, or I cannot have hashtag over here, but dollar and underscore is allowed. Okay, and in case of dollar and underscore, yes, dollar and underscore, okay, I can place underscore. Okay, so now if we talk about third rule, in Java we don't have any restrictions on the sequence of this underscore and dollar. We can use them in starting, in end, in between, anything, anywhere. Okay, so I can write here underscore AB. Also I can write single dollar also. Okay, so this is also correct. Okay, so we'll run a program. Just suppose I gave here a simple name A and I save the program, and when we run it, okay, so here we can see it is compiling successfully, and when we run it we'll get the output as hello, as we are printing the line. in our program. Now suppose I give here dollar and then I save and run a program again, then it would run perfectly and the output would be hello. Just suppose I gave here underscore AB and I save the program. And I run it. Okay, so it has compiled successfully and the output is hello. Okay, so this was all about the second rule. Now we have the third rule. Okay, the third rule says that the first letter cannot be a digit. Okay, so here we have the rule that the first letter cannot be a digit. By this I mean that in this variable, in this identifier name, we can have underscore, dollar or any alphabet in starting, but we cannot give a digit in starting. This is not a valid identifier name. We'll get an error if we compile. Okay, so I'll save the program and we'll compile java c a.java file name. So we got an error that this is not a statement. Okay, so this is not correct. Yes, I can give this 9 in between, a b 9. This is correct. Okay, we'll not get an error. Our program will be compiled successfully and we'll get the output hello. Also it can be present in between as well. I am having some digits after it. Okay, so this is also absolutely fine. We'll get the output hello. Okay, this was about the third rule, that the first letter cannot be a digit. Now the fourth rule is that the identifier name must not match with any keyword. Okay, it must not match with any keyword. Okay, I have already discussed this rule in the video of keyword. Okay, here I discussed that variable name should not match with keyword. Okay, so just suppose if I am having a variable name int if and semicolon, I will get an error. I'll show you the demo as well. Okay, just suppose here I declare if as the identifier name. This is not correct. We will get an error. Okay, so here you can see we got an error. Okay, because this thing is not allowed, as if is a keyword in Java. Okay, this was all about the fourth rule. Now if we talk about fifth rule, okay, here we have the fifth rule, which says that Java is a case sensitive language. That means it can differentiate between uppercase and lowercase characters. Okay, so here we have Java is a case sensitive language, that is it can differentiate between uppercase and lowercase characters. Okay, suppose in this case we'll get an error, but here if I give capital F and I save the program, okay, so now we'll not get an error because capital F is not a keyword. Small f is a keyword, but capital F is not a keyword. This line will also not give any error because I is small and f is capital. And this rule says that Java is case sensitive, which means here small I and capital I both are different. So in small, if we have if, that is a keyword, but if in caps we write capital I and capital F, that is not considered as a keyword. Okay, this was the fifth rule. Now we have the sixth rule, which says that there is no limit on length of the identifier, which means we can give any length of the identifier. Okay, here I can write any length of characters. Okay, can have any length of characters in the identifier name. There is no limit. But in case of C language, there was the limit. In C language, we can write any length of characters. We could not get an error, but the compiler of C would take only starting 8 characters of that name. Okay, so suppose if I take 8 characters, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Okay, so suppose if I write this code in C and this variable, this identifier name in C, then the C compiler would only take ifsggJSD. Till here only it will take. But in Java, the Java compiler will consider the whole variable name, whole identifier name. Okay, this is the sixth rule. Now the last rule says that two identifiers cannot have same name within same scope. Okay, so here we have two identifiers cannot have same name within same scope, within same scope. This is the last rule, which means suppose if I am having a program like this. Okay, suppose I am having a program. There is one method in which there is one scope actually. These are one curly braces and these are other curly braces in same program. This is one same program. Here we have a variable declared int a, and in this second scope we have the same variable name, that is int a. Okay, so this is absolutely correct because these both are two different scopes. If we talk about these two scopes, these are two different scopes. But suppose if I take an example where I have single curly braces in one scope, if I write int a and int a. Okay, suppose here if I write int a and right after it in the same scope if I write int a. Okay, here we have int a. Then we will get an error because this is a same scope. Okay, we will take the example also. Okay, so here if I delete this, okay, suppose I take variable name a in, sorry, I'll delete this. Suppose if I have this one set of curly braces, now I have another set of curly brackets. In the first set if I write int a, here we have int a, and in second set also if I write int a, and if I save my program and run it. Okay, so here if I run my program, that is javac.java, and if I, okay, so it is compiled successfully. There is no error because these two are different scopes. These two are different scopes. One scope is from this curly bracket to this, in which we have the variable a, and now its scope is finished. Now we have new scope, different scope, in which we have another variable a. But suppose I delete this scope and I write one more variable int a after some lines, but here you can see we have the same scope, so we'll get an error. Okay, so here we'll get an error, will not be compiled successfully. Variable a is already defined in method main. Okay, so as this is the same scope, we cannot use same variable inside same scope. This is all about the 7 rules. Okay, now I'll take an example where we need to define, we will check about which one is a valid identifier name and which one is not. Okay, so suppose I open OneNote. Okay, so just suppose if I have ABC comma capital ABC, this is also correct. Now if I take dollar and then small abc, this is also correct. If I take underscore and small abc, this is also correct. If I take ABC 1 2 3, this is also correct. Okay, we can match it from the rules. We are not exploiting any of the rules we have discussed. Okay, now if I take 7 ABC, this is not correct because According to this third rule, the first letter cannot be a digit, and here 7 is the first letter, so this 7 ABC is not correct. Okay, so I'll unmark this. Now we have another one, that is G.S. This is also not correct, as according to the second rule we cannot have a dot. Okay, and here we have dot inside G and S. Between G and S we are having a dot, so this is also not allowed. Okay, let's take one more example. Okay, suppose I am having G.S is done. Now if I have gross and space celery, comma, this gross celery is also not valid because we are having a space in between, as the second rule says that we cannot have a space, and inside here in between the word gross and celery we are having a space over here, so this is not allowed. Okay, so I'll cross this one also. Okay, now suppose if we have one more example, that is if I take gross @celery, this is also not allowed because here in the symbols we are only allowed for underscore and dollar, and any other special symbol is not allowed. So @ is some any other special symbol, so this is also not allowed. I'll cancel this. Okay, now suppose if we have gross underscore celery, this is absolutely correct because underscore is allowed. And if I have if, this is not allowed. Okay, if I am having else, it is also not allowed. If I'm having float in caps, or suppose I have this variable name FLO and A in caps but T in small, this is allowed because float is a keyword but that is in small. This is in caps, FLO, A is in caps, so this is not a keyword, so this is allowed. Okay, this was all about the identifier naming rules. Now we have the identifier naming conventions. Okay, so here we have identifier naming conventions. By conventions I mean which are not compulsory, these are optionals. It's our choice whether we want to follow the conventions or we don't want. Okay, these are followed from old times. Okay, so we have 4 conventions. First is that the class or interface name is in title case. Okay, we have the class or we have the class or interface name in title case. Okay, title case is in which the first letter of every word is capital. Okay, suppose I have the class name. Suppose I have the class name MyFirstClass. Okay, so if I write like this, M capital of my, F capital of first, and C capital of class, and then the class body, and then we have the class body. Okay, so in this case we are having 3 words, my, first, and class, and these 3 words are having their first letter as capital. Here M is capital, here F is capital, and here C is capital. This is called as title case. Okay, now we have the second rule which says that the method name is in camel case. Okay, so if we have some method name, it should be written in camel case. Okay, by camel case I mean that every letter of each letter, just a second, by camel case I mean that every letter of each word should be in capital, leaving except the first word. Okay, so just suppose if I have some method whose return type is void, and let the method name be my first method. Okay, in this case we are having three words, my, first and method. In this we are having each letter, the first letter of each word in capital. Here we have F capital and M capital, but in first word we don't have the letter capital. Here M is not capital, here M is small. Okay, this is called as camel case, in which every letter of each word, every first letter of each word is capital except the first word. Okay, now the third rule says that the final variable should be written in uppercase. Okay, so the third rule says that final variable is written in uppercase. Okay, so for example, if I have some final variable float, pi is in capital, and then we can write the value according to our wish, that is 3.141 f denoting float. Okay, so here in this case we are taking p and I and capital, that is in uppercase. This is our third rule. Okay, now we have the last rule, that is the package name is written in lowercase. Okay, so the fourth rule says that package name is written in lowercase. So for example, if I am having a package, my first package, then I'll have lowercase. Okay, here all the letters are present in lowercase. Okay, these are 4 identifier naming conventions which we should follow. It is not compulsory that we should follow them, as we'll not get an error if we don't follow them. Okay, so here in this case, as we can see, the class convention say that a class name should be in title case. Okay, so here as I'm having the first letter capital, if I take it in small a, then also it is correct, will not get an error, it is absolutely fine. Okay, so the conventions are optional but the rules are compulsory. If we don't follow the rules, we'll get an error, but if we don't follow the conventions, we'll not get an error. That's it for this video. Thank you everyone.